So we can't eat Haribo during this episode?
No, you can't eat Haribo during
Don't rustle the bag, don't chew the Haribo. But come a bit closer this way as well, because you sort of...
Can I drink?
Yeah, because that's the mic.
Can I drink water or my Coke?
I'm sure there'll be times when we have a little,
up and down the Coke can, like, you know, don't be...
I'll try not to.
And also, try and avoid...
Can I eat the chips?
No.
Did you just pull me closer to you then? Fart. Freaking grim. Look at him, he's already eaten Haribo.
Right.
Take him away.
We'll do the intro.
Can I finish Haribo first?
Hello, and welcome back to the Not So Old Boys podcast. Despite what you might think, Chesney Jennings is not here. Today you are joined by
Stephen, Benwell, superstar striker for Old Wilsonians, and again, pleasure to be here, Adam. And thanks for hosting as well. Thanks for subbing in for Chesney today.
we've also got...
Rob back again. Not missed an episode. Concluding the season strongly. And again, thank you, Adam, for stepping in today.
That's all right.
And Lloyd, only 4 today, so I make up the foursome. And thank you, Adam, for hosting today. I felt like if I didn't say it, I would look a dick because everyone else did.
And if you haven't guessed already, I'm Adam Benwell.
Right, fellas, listen up.
I need to do it again now, Lloyd.
Fellas!
Can I just ask one question about the intros? How many goals has the superstar striker for the Threes scored so far this season?
Is this across the 3s and the 4s games that he's played?
No, just the three.
No.
It's just for the 3s, okay.
I can answer that because if you include the 3s and the 4s, the answer's still the same. It is 0 so far this season, with a missed penalty, but 2 assists.
But in fairness, Giroud won the World Cup, being the starting striker for France, and didn't even register a shot on target.
Yeah, Giroud is also the all-time goal scorer for the French national team.
Yeah.
I am not.
Even the all-time goal scorer for the 5s. Or the 3s.
I'm not going to be up there.
Or the club.
Last year, got 19 goals last year.
In fairness, though, you're not French.
In fairness, I'm not French, and I do look like Olivier Giroud
Similar.
in a certain light.
Darkness. Yeah, with the lights off.
How does a man's perception of his financial status or career success affect his self-worth and identity?
I am a paediatric nurse. I have got 3 siblings, 2 brothers, 1 sister, all of whom are doctors. So for my life, I've always had, well, since my working life, I've always had, were you not intelligent enough? And I feel that has affected my self-worth because I feel like I haven't achieved what they have. Despite I've gone in a completely different, similarities, but different field, I feel like I've achieved less because I'm a nurse, they are doctors.
Did you ever want to be a doctor?
Never.
And would you say that's more a family pressure than the pressure of being male?
I don't think it's family pressure at all. My family have never sort of tried to belittled me.
No, but
once.
do you feel it because they are your family?
Yeah, because I feel like that it's not that my family puts the pressure, it's that clearly the comparison is made. I come from a very small town. My dad's a doctor, my brothers are all doctors, my sister's a doctor, and I'm the nurse, and I think there's that sort of small town mentality of, oh, bless him.
Who do you think is that coming from? So people not around here, but are you talking about when you were back home? Or?
I think it's an internal thing more than anything. I really do believe that it's mostly me. I remember my sister gave me a cup for Christmas years ago, and it was just a mug, and it said on it, "Nurses like doctors, only smarter," and I was really offended.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell you why.
Well, that's right. Nurses are
like doctors, only smarter, or something along.
So
those
it's saying
lines.
that nurses are
saying
smarter.
nurses are smarter.
Yes, but it was clearly, a tongue-in-cheek type thing, and I took it the wrong way, and I got very upset about it, which then upset my sister. But no, it's an internal thing.
Do you think that's more of a title as opposed to the amount of money you're making from it, though?
I think it's more of a thing that doctors traditionally, it's a sexy job, isn't it? And I think this is one thing that maybe this is completely wrong, But I feel that women see certain professions as sexier than others. As a man, I couldn't care less if a woman is a bus driver, a police officer, a pilot. It doesn't mean anything in terms of how attracted I am to her. But I feel like women, or at least in our society, or at least I get that impression, that women would rather a doctor than a nurse.
Is that because is that the money side of it though?
I think it's the respect side of it. I think, that a doctor is a sexier, air quotes, profession.
I think society maybe tells us that's the case, but I know, nearly all the girls that we all kind of know, I don't think they would necessarily think to themselves, I wouldn't be with that person because they do that certain job. No. It's because they like that particular person.
I agree.
I couldn't say that I know anybody really off the top of my head who would immediately turn somebody down because of the job they do.
Is that because we're surrounded by quite sort of down-to-earth, sort of nice, warm sort of types of females as opposed to perhaps the ones that maybe Lloyd's encountered or has spoken about? Like we surround ourselves in the sort of people that we want to be surrounded by, so we haven't got maybe the men or women in our lives that would have that attitude towards us, perhaps. I
guess a good question would be for like the dating scene. Again, it goes back to going on a date.
Yeah,
we would usually like to buy the first drink and stuff like that, and having more money obviously is a better look.
What do you think would be like an income amount that you'd be satisfied with earning, sort of that feels relatively achievable in the modern era? Because I thought when I was, say, 20, I always said, like, if I get to 50 grand a year, that I should be able to live really comfortably on 50 grand a year. And now that we're in the sort of economic situation that we're in, that sort of money, although I'm not like struggling or food banking, some of the really dire situations lots of people are in, it isn't what I thought 50 grand a year would get you when I was 20.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Maybe inflation as well.
No, 100%, that's what I'm saying. Absolutely the economic process that's gone on now. But those kind of figures in my head were going to be like, I'm going to be able to have a wicked house and I'm going to have like lovely cars and loads of money for X and Y and Z. But actually, because of the way the economy's gone and how things have changed in prices, and also just the realisation when you become a homeowner and a bit more of an adult, that there's all those hidden bills that you don't think about when you're 20, 21, that actually, although, let's say 50 grand or 60 grand or that kind of region of money, although that is a good amount of money, and there are lots of people who would love to be earning that kind of money, it actually doesn't feel as rewarding as it in my head felt when I was 20. So I think, and I think if I sat here now and I asked myself that question, I'd be like, probably 100 grand would feel great. But then I might get to 100 grand and it still not feel quite right. And it goes back to that conversation we spent about in the last podcast about that. Maybe it's just that sort of rival fallacy of never quite.
I think most people will feel that.
Happy.
Because then even if you're the second richest man in the world, you're not the richest man in the world. So you'll try and become the richest man in the world. And you'll always have that, I guess, inferiority complex. If you see, and particularly if you watch a lot of social media, then it can give you an inferiority complex because you're not earning a certain amount of money, and you see influencers driving really nice cars and really nice houses or whatever. I'm not massively into social media. I don't really look at it too much. And that's why, me personally, I think I'm always been quite comfortable with myself. I'm quite comfortable with my own skin, but I know that it can be a big problem in terms of if you're looking at social media, if you're scrolling for Instagram all the time and seeing these people living these wonderful lives, and again, that's manufactured to a certain extent.
Of course, yeah. You see those the pictures of the jets where they hire out the inside of a jet for a picture, don't they? And then it's just like a fake jet.
Because nobody wants to see somebody driving around a Fiat Punto and then bragging about that Fiat Punto.
No, although if you did, props to you. Drive around that Fiat Punto and,
So, I've never felt overly, I guess, fussed about it, really, in terms of I've never really had an inferiority complex on that front. I've always been very, very comfortable
and I think
myself and the amount of money that I make, and I can live a comfortable lifestyle because of it. So when you say, can you give a number that you think is achievable, I give a number that I think is achievable, but I think I'd be equally happy earning...
If you never earn any more.
Yeah, I'd be equally happy earning 20 grand. Like, I can live... I've lived at university and I've been a happy person, and I'm not being jealous of anyone else because... Yeah.
But then, for me, I think now... I mean, I remember when I did GCSE, the one thing that I remember on economics is the wealth effect, and effectively, the more you get, the more you spend.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, really, are you ever going to be... Unless you're earning loads of money...
silly money,
your spending is going to catch up with
Absolutely,
how much
and the
you're-
biggest thing would
you're
always
earning.
be your property, right? Because if you earn £100,000, you then go and buy £1 million house.
Yeah.
So your mortgage is still effectively, maybe
Yeah.
equates to 40% of your income payment or whatever, which is the same for somebody that earns £80,000 and buys a £500,000 house, and the same for somebody that earns 30 grand and buys a £100,000 house, right?
Yeah.
The sort of the chunk that it takes out remains the same, but only if you scale up what you want with that money that you earn. I would quite happily live in my flat for the next 50 years and then just have more disposable income to do more of the fun things.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not that fussed at having a massive house and a big garden. It's just more upkeep. Like, it's just more rooms to
I
clean
agree.
and a bigger garden to clean. So I'd rather have a really, really flashy sports car and then just go on holiday 4 times a year to somewhere really fancy.
I love how you're like, I don't care about
Yeah. I just need a flashy sports car. That's what I need.
I'm not saying my opinion is right or anyone's necessarily going to agree with it, but I would much rather, Benjamin Zephaniah or somebody come along and tell me how he made poems and TV and screenplays and how he's got £1 million. He has recently died, which is why I'm using as an example. But he's like a really important person in British history and black history. And I'd rather listen to him about how he made a bit of money doing whatever it might be than a Kardashian tell me about their makeup brand they've launched because they had 10 million quid in the bank to launch the makeup brand in the first place and then pay for the advertising and pay for the sponsorships and all those other
That's that old
things.
adage, isn't it? Your first million is the hardest to make.
I feel like for any of our non-immediate friends and podcast listeners, none of us have $1 million.
Did any of you guys, when you were in school, like around 15, get dragged in for that careers talk? Did anyone get that?
Like the careers officer.
Who was that person?
Yeah, we have a lady at my current work who's the careers officer.
Is that
she,
still a thing?
She just hands me a slip and says, "Bring this child at this time." I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
the mystery." I think it's just to give kids an option to let them know like what sixth forms are available, what colleges are available, trying to get them to think because lots of 16-year-olds don't know what they want to do next.
But who at 15, 16 does know what they
Well, that's
want
the
to do
purpose. So they're just trying to get you to think slightly in one direction, in a sense of if you say you like art, they'll go, "Oh, well, these are all the courses you could attend college if you like art, or if you like mechanics, then you could look at doing cars, or you could look at doing this," and they'll try and point in the right direction. Or if you say, "Oh, I really want to be a doctor, but I don't know how to get there," then they'll say, "Oh, well, you need to do these A levels and this course and stuff." But they also help out with things like job applications. So if you are 15, 16, and maybe your parents don't speak English as a first language, and you apply to work at Tesco, you can take your application into her, and then she'll help you write like your CVs and help you do like your online application and that. So they do play an important role.
Okay, fair enough.
They do play
So
an
I
important
didn't
role.
realise that. So they asked me what subjects I liked, and I remember saying RS, religious studies, religious education, whatever it was, and I genuinely did find it interesting. Anyway,
Very interesting.
so they filled up. So this wasn't a sort of a talk about sort of a conversation about jobs, about what you could do. It was very much almost an aptitude test where she took my scores, sent it off, and then I got the results back.
Oh.
So mine worked very differently.
I do remember I had a lesson, it was called L2L, Learning to Learn, right?
That's disgraceful.
I don't know what that meant. I think it was like their version of citizenship or general studies, but we were in like year 8 or year 9, and we had these little yellow books, and one of the first lessons was you had to write down like your dreams. So it was like your dream job, your dream like car, your dream whatever it was. And I wrote B007
Yeah.
as my dream job.
Yes.
And everyone laughed at me and went, "That's a real job." And everyone was laughing. I was like, "Fine, I work in MI6. And then the teacher went, "No, you won't."
So, can you share any personal experiences or observations of how financial stress has affected your mental health or someone you know?
I've got a couple, unless anyone...
I feel like I'm
Jump
useless.
in.
No, I don't feel like it has
Okay.
ever affected me. So you go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's because you're a baller, isn't it?
No, it's
Steve?
not even that. It's not,
He's happy with 20
it's not
grand.
even that. It's not even that.
Some of us here went to university and have gone through the experience of having money and perhaps not having money. Now, I was of a situation where the government paid for my fees and gave me the very minimum maintenance loan because my parents were still together and they earned above an average wage, which wasn't much above an average wage. They weren't like rolling around in Bentleys or anything. It was just above the minimum cut-off for the additional funding. So it meant when I went to university, even in Coventry to pay for the halls, my maintenance loan wasn't enough to cover the costs of living at university. Forget the going out or the anything else, just the rent for my halls wasn't covered by the maintenance loan. So I worked a Saturday job and weekdays at Tesco, and then I carried it on through the time I was at university. And to make my life easier, I thought at the time to have to try and struggle getting a transfer and then struggle getting a transfer back every time I wanted to do some work at home, I carried on working at the Tesco in Elm's End. So it meant on a weekend I came home on a Friday, worked a Saturday, Sunday, went back up to uni on a Sunday evening, and did that for 2.5 years. Extra, I know, but the money that I was earning was more than enough to cover my rent and my bills. And then when it became summer holidays or a Christmas holidays or an Easter holidays, I could then work 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days and earn, £1,000 a month or whatever through Tesco, which is more than enough to then get me through. But when I got to third year, I thought, well, I need to really, really focus on my studies. I can't be coming home every weekend. So I decided to resign from the Tesco job and then work at uni, or not work, and then just attend university. But then I didn't have enough money to sort of cover things. So it got to the last term, and I got to a position where, for like every day, I was just eating bread and butter in a different variation. So like for lunch, it'd be bread with some butter, and then for dinner, it'd be toast, buttered. And then the next day, it'd be I'd butter the bread and then fry it in the toaster to make fried toast.
You're playing very fast and
And-
word variation.
And then occasionally, if I was feeling really fancy, I'd buy some eggs and have like a fried egg on toast, right? And I lived like that for like 3 or 4 weeks because I'm not the sort of person to ever ask them to borrow money. So I used to pain me to even think about phoning my mum and dad to borrow some money. And it got to the point where like 3 weeks into this bread and butter diet, which let me tell you, is not good. I don't
Have you
think...
lost weight? Like,
No, well, if I had it, it was all just disappearing somewhere else. Like I was so low on energy and anything like that. I eventually phoned my dad and said, "Look, I need some money. Like I've only got a few weeks left, but I can't keep living on whatever it is, bread and butter, literally." So he sent me some money, and I sort of did a food shop and sort of came back in and finished off university. And when I'd lived through that, I said to myself, like, whatever happens, you're never going to be that poor again. Like, you never get yourself in that position where you cannot afford to buy yourself a fucking burger or like a bit of chicken or something. I never ever get in that position again. And so for the next 12 years of my life, I haven't been in that situation until when I was spoken on the last podcast about my job that I then left early because the whole process that was going on there. I then ended up going through like a 2-month period where I wasn't getting paid for my teacher wage and I was still having to pay for mortgages and those kind of things. Now, it never quite got as bad as the bread and butter. I still covered my bills and things because I sort of saved up enough over the years. But I was getting to the point where I was then going, would I rather have a coffee or would I rather have a sandwich?
I'm actually very similar to you in terms of when I was travelling in New Zealand when I was 18, no money at all. I think I was living off like, it was probably not the best. There's probably a cheap way I could have done it, but like 30p ice creams from McDonald's. You know, those little tiny
Yeah,
ones.
the little short tubs.
About 2 of those a day. And you remember when I came back from New Zealand, I was skinny. Like, I looked unhealthy in terms of just skin and bones. And when I was at university, very similar thing. I'd used to have cheesy, hammy, buttery pasta, where just I used to buy a massive bag of pasta.
Yeah.
That's literally all I had, and then I'd have a tiny bit of cheese with it. But one of the, the grated,
the big
pre-grated
bags.
one.
Yeah, the big bags. Yeah.
Butter, and ham. And you can guess, buttery, hammy, cheesy pasta. But I'd have that all the time. That would literally be all I'd eat.
What is in the buttery, hammy, cheesy pasta?
Buttery, hammy, cheesy pasta. So it's pasta.
The main ingredients, just run through them again. Main ingredients.
Butter.
Butter.
Ham.
Cheese.
Base is pasta.
Pasta.
I was living off a real budget, not really spending much money. And rather than you thinking I'm never going to kind of have to live like that again, it put in my mind how valuable money was. And I am very rarely spending stuff on myself. I'm not a very materialistic person. Again, it probably goes back to what you're talking about, social media. I became, after that time at university, after that time in New Zealand, became very, very good at saving money. I don't think that me personally, I don't think I'm a stingy person to the people that I care about and the people that I really like.
No, I would agree with that because actually, I think you sometimes you have this funny stigma of being really tight with money, but actually, when we go out, you always buy a drink.
Yeah.
Like you always buy a drink. So you're not tight with money like you say for you home, but there are times when
I can be tight, and I can be principled because I will not really spend much money on myself. I like spending money on doing activities, doing things that I like. Again, being one of the first people at the bar and buying a round of drinks for people, and it's rare that I'll go to myself, I really want that piece of clothing, or I really want that new car. Like I put off buying a new car for myself
for months
now, just because I'm thinking to myself, I want to make sure I get a really good deal when I do buy a car, because I just want a car from A to B. I don't care what car that looks like. I just like a car that moves.
Wheels, 4 wheels and an engine.
For me, I'm just very stingy with myself.
Did you not see your £5 as an investment into Dylan? As an investment
No, because I didn't even know that. We can talk about that. I'm more than happy to talk about.
Okay, so
if you want to give it a context.
So we have a new keeper this season, and his name is
Dylan.
And basically, a few of us sort of senior players in the team, Kieran Wright, one of our players, added us into a group chat and basically sort of said, look, we've got a new keeper starting. Let's all chuck in £5 to pay his subs. It is a sort of young lad, and just so that way we've got a keeper for the whole season, and it helps him out. And at the end of the day, it's £5 from each of us. So we all got added into this group, and Stephen, without saying anything, just left the group.
having seen the initial message of lads, I think we should all chip in £5. The next thing that popped up was Stephen Benwell has left the chat.
But yeah, I guess it's another. The principle of that for Stephen was the fact that, which when you put it like this, someone's just added you into a group and said, "Give me £5," which is fair enough.
Yeah,
but
I've never met him either. I really like the guy.
Oh, yeah.
I really like the guy now, but I'd never met him at all beforehand.
Would you pay a
I
£5
pay
now?
now. I pay now.
So do you want to go refund Kieran a £5?
Nope.
It was less instructional then. It was, lads, I think we're doing, can we all chip in a £5? I don't think it was, you must pay £5.
It sounded that way to me.
That's
why I immediately left.
We've got another story that shows off Stephen's principled thoughts on money. We went to Kavos for our football tour, end of season, and I'm sharing a room with my brother Stephen and my flatmate Stephen. Me and flatmate Stephen are very happy to pay, I think it was 20 odd quid or 20 euros for air conditioning in our room the entire duration of the holiday. My brother, on the other hand, was not having any of it. It came to about 60 euros in total, and my brother was like, well, look, you can get the air conditioning, but I'm not going to buy it. And I was like, but think about me and Stephen as well, as opposed to just you. And then and his principled thought on it was, look, I'm going to a hot country. I shouldn't have to pay for my air conditioning. And I said to him, I was like, if the hotel had just charged you £60 or 60 euros more and not said this is for aircon, he would have gone, yeah, that's fine.
That is fine.
But the fact that you had to pay, it was the fact you had to pay extra for air conditioning, and he was like, I'll just sleep hot.
See, for me, because I appreciate that if I'm doing something and it's going to cost me £10 more, but it saves me 4 hours, that is fine.
No, I'm with you.
I don't quite know where the seesaw is. Like, I don't know myself yet.
No.
But there certainly comes a point where I go, no, I'm just going to pay. Like, I haven't ever paid the toll charge on the M6.
But convenience costs money. I think that's
100% it does.
thing.
That's why your Uber Eats and your deliveries are so expensive.
That's why they do so well. Can I say another story about Stephen's principles in Kavos?
Yeah, of course.
So when we all went out, we all got tucked up a bit, to be fair, by the airline. Because their idea of hand luggage and actual hand luggage is completely different. Like,
who did you fly with?
EasyJet.
Yeah.
Oh, no, because they changed the rules, didn't they? 'Cause it's now a backpack rather than a carry-on.
Backpack, it's barely a handbag. Like this,
It has to fit under the seat.
And Steve, bless him. And Steve, I just remember you trying to shove. You know, they've got those little cages.
Yeah.
You trying to shove your canvas bag into this thing, insisting it would fit. So we all got tucked over, and if you buy it, that annoys me. If you buy it before,
it's like 12 quid.
It's like 12 quid.
Nothing, yeah.
If you buy it on the day, it's like 40 quid or something.
Yeah.
And so we all got, we all were just like, right, let's just do this now. We found a way to do it on the app. Steve's like, no, I'm going to do it. We arrive in the airport, and I'm just sitting there minding my own business. I don't know, on my phone or something. And Steve just comes down and sits next to me wearing literally everything. You had a beanie, you had a cardigan, a hoodie. I get it, because...
Yeah, So another one of me, though, like again, because of the money side of it, though. But like when I'm going on holiday, I don't want the holiday to be stressful.
That's
so
exactly
again,
it.
I'd just much rather pay the 10 or 12 quid or whatever it is in advance to just
Not
be
think
less
about it.
shit.
But that's how they
and
get
like, well, no, but it's not though, Steve, because I then arrive to the airport and I don't have to wear all my clothes and I don't have to unpack my suitcase in front of everyone. And when I get to the other side, I haven't got to walk 5 miles to the hotel. I'll just pay the 10 quid for the taxi because if I'm going on holiday, I don't want it to be a fuck about. So I mean, like, and it's the same thing when I'm booking a flight. I'm not going to save myself 4 quid and go the double long way round or like stop in New Mexico to then have to go to Gibraltar to get to Scotland or something, but to save a tenner, right?
Freaking routine.
No. This go really quickly.
Yeah.
We went to France for the World Cup, and we were going to Lille, and my brother booked the tickets, and we went to Lille from
Via
London via Venice.
Right. Honestly, so that's what I'm saying, right? You've flown over the place you're going
over
to
Lille.
to get to Venice.
well over Lille.
Yeah, to get
Like
to
on the other
Venice,
side
which
of
is an
Europe.
hour or 2 away from Lille. Stop. Have to get on another flight, which you have to wait in the airport for to get back on a flight to get back. How much did you save?
Oh, enough. We saved enough.
No, go on. How much did
I
you
genuinely
save?
think it would have been about 20 quid.
If you're talking saving £300, £400, £500, then I don't mind.
We had one in with our mates in uni where they were booking flights for everyone, but I had to come back into London. And they said to me, Steve, you can either pay £50 to get back to London via Oslo, or pay £60 to get a direct flight to London. I went, fuck yes, I'm getting the via Oslo one. I was saving £10. And they're like, it's a 2-hour stopover. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
give me that.
Nah. The other thing is, you spend those 2 hours in the airport, and what do you do while you're there? You buy a coffee, or you buy a drink,
don't.
or you buy a magazine. All of a sudden,
I definitely don't.
Well, you don't. The 10 quid you've saved is now just gone on a Mackey's or something.
He's too busy in the toilet putting all his
and then taking them off again when it's really hot.
All right, Steve, I'll ask you a question then.
Yeah.
What if, let's say money was no object in your life.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got 200 million in the bank. Yes, fine, convenience you would pay for, maybe.
Yeah.
Would you pay for comfort?
No.
So would you pay, you've got
No,
So you wouldn't
exactly
pay
the
for
same
long
plane.
legroom or anything like that.
No.
So you
Fine.
wouldn't pay for long, you wouldn't pay for first class.
No.
You wouldn't, you would rather be on the same plane but in the standard
Yeah.
class. So it's,
Well, that'd be,
so
it's good enough for our
so-
team, it's good enough for me.
So it's a principle. Yeah. No, I'm with you on that.
Me too.
I would pay for convenience, so I would pay extra to have a 3-hour flight rather than a 6-hour flight, but I wouldn't pay extra to have comfort.
Yeah, I think now
on
I
that
would as well.
flight.
For example, with me, because I am like principled and I don't spend money frivolously, I've never really found, and because I can live on a shoestring, I know how to live on a shoestring, I know how to not spend money, I've never really struggled for money, and it's never been really a problem for me because I know I have money saved up.
When you spend money, for example, I don't mind me bringing it up, your burger that
Yeah.
you sort of just regrettably spent.
Huge,
26
massive regret.
What feeling is it? Why do you feel regret? Is it anxiety? I don't want to put words in your mouth. What feeling? Why do you feel that?
Okay, so just to give you kind of context on what Lloyd's saying, before this podcast, and I know I've been going about how frugal,
It does make you sound really.
and it's going to make me sound massively hypocritical, but I've just spent £26 on a burger.
Wasn't it 28?
No, it's 26. I have the receipt. Oh, it's so stupid, and it's so stupid. I bought a burger, some wings, and some chips just now
drink.
for £26.
No drink, yeah.
No drink.
Not delivered.
Not delivered.
You had to go pick it up.
I went and go picked it up. Because it was from a restaurant, and then I asked Adam, I said, is there any places around here that you can get like a cheap takeaway?
I said
And
pizza.
he said, well, yeah, pizza, but pizza's quite expensive as well.
No, you can get like
You didn't say it was like an £8
you could
Papa
get like
John's.
any pizza place. You can get a pizza for £10 when you go in. I
If you
think.
had said that at the time, I'd have gone, yeah, I'll get that. But I
He's
had it
not
in my
a Papa
mind.
John's expert like you are.
I had it in my mind that it was going to be a lot of money to
People-
get a pizza.
He's had pizza before.
So somebody recommended Hello Burger, so I thought I'll call them. Lloyd or Rob, whoever it was, recommended go that. So I called them, and I said, I'll have this, this, and this. I went, how much would that be? And he said £26, whatever, 75. I ordered it, I was like, oh, fuck, why have I just spent £26.75 on something that I don't need to eat? I'm just feeling a little bit hungry, I can get something cheaper. And then Lloyd could tell that I was getting a little bit annoyed at the fact I've just spent that money and I have to go collect
You sat
it.
down and went, that was really stupid.
Yeah, I did. I sat down
It
immediately and
wasn't
went,
subliminal
so
messaging,
stupid.
right, yeah.
So stupid. And Lloyd said, why don't you just not turn up, or why don't you cancel it? Why don't you call off and cancel? I was like, I feel bad now that I've made them. They've started making it, and I won't turn up and collect the food.
So if you got a Mackey's
Yeah.
and it was say £12,
Yep.
that'd be okay.
Yeah, because I think you get good value for money from McDonald's.
Is that so purely based on the cost though? Because would you say that the Hello Burger and the wings were twice as good as a Mackey's?
No,
Okay, that's fair.
the burger was really good though.
Yeah.
The burger was better than a Mackey's burger. I could go eat.
Well, you could have got a meal deal from Tesco for
Yeah.
£3.50.
Or I could go buy a bag of iceberg lettuce and eat that. Also,
Or some cheesy
That's
ham,
Pasta,
pasta.
curry, hammy cheese pasta.
How do you make that?
Butter,
Yeah.
ham,
Right.
cheese.
Right.
Wait, I've got it. Pasta.
You have the saying, peace of mind.
Isn't it awful that peace of mind is expensive? Like
Yeah.
people are selling.
Oh,
That's
of
basically
course
the
it
premise
is,
of
yeah.
insurance, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can get insurance on everything.
Yeah.
Like, it's
And
just
isn't this the
everything.
biggest scam as well? And we're all now homeowners, and you have a house and we all have flats, so we all pay a proportion of money into the building's
Yeah.
insurance, and obviously you have your own building insurance, and then we already all have content insurance. Now I don't know about everyone else, but I pay I think like £11 to insure all of the contents of my flat a month, right? £11, and I can get like tens of thousands of pounds of stuff back, no problem if it gets nicked.
If you've got all the receipts.
If you've got the receipts, then.
Yeah,
If you
yeah,
drive
yeah.
a car, which you legally have to have insurance for, which they know you legally have to have insurance for, it's thousands of pounds a year. Now, my car is not worth as much as the possessions in my flat. And I get that the other sides are you may need to pay because you may smash a more expensive car up, or you might damage a building, or you might run somebody over and they put a claim in. And I get what things are factored in, but isn't it such a scam that the one legal insurance you have to have is the one they make the most expensive? And I just find those kind of like, that really, really, really pisses me off.
But that's the same as the what's it just called, the ULEZ.
Oh, 100%.
That is a tax, and I'm sorry to get political, but I feel like that is a tax on poor people, because
100% is.
people who
100%
have
is.
these cars that don't fit those requirements,
Yeah.
they generally have them because they're older cars. They generally have older cars because they can't afford new cars.
100%.
Anyone medical listening to this will appreciate this. So I don't know if you
NHS parking.
No, I mean that's a whole other thing.
They charge for hospitals now in car parks.
so it's
Not
a
now.
joke.
Have done for
Winds me up.
decades.
Yeah.
And there's an
So-
M&S in our hospital, King's College Hospital. There's an M&S there, and it is more expensive than a standard M&S on a high street.
Crazy.
Nobody is in hospital because they want to be. Anyway, that's a separate issue. But the issue I was going to say was, every year I get charged by the NMC, the Nursing Midwifery Council, £125 a year to do my job. I do have one question with insurance though. Life insurance. I saw an advert the other day and it said like, we've got 5-star customer reviews. Who's reviewing life insurance?
I'm guessing the family that go, well, hey, we just got £1 million. Yep, that was a good service. Cheers.
Anyway.
So going back to how money has made you feel down sometimes, I definitely have had that time where basically I've been acting ever since I came out of school, and I've been doing lots of random little jobs like DJing parties, kids parties, delivering fruit and veg, delivering milk, all sorts of random
John's,
jobs.
as you
Papa
mentioned,
John's,
yeah.
working at a charity furniture shop, doing removals, all sorts of different things. And I have been self-employed ever since I've came out of school. And one time that I was quite down is obviously when COVID hit, I wasn't in a full-time job, so I wasn't getting any money. Thankfully, Papa John's was still open and I could still get money from that. But I remember during that time I went on to Universal Credit, and it is obviously that stigma of saying that I'm on Universal Credit that was already didn't feel great, and then basically it just got to a point where I was like, I was wanting to do these things when we came out of lockdown, but I just couldn't afford it. In previous months and stuff like that, I've got into them situations where I'm like, I'm having to spend money to go into work on the train, but I can't afford this train travel, and then I'm coming back and I'm like, I can't really afford to go out and eat unless I have the thought process of being like, oh, I'll put it on the credit card, and then that's future Adam's problem, and then future Adam catches up, and it just carries on going down.
It's a vicious cycle, isn't it?
Money makes the world go round.
Like you say, it's money doesn't buy happiness, but it does make the world go round, like you say.
Yeah.
And it's very tricky because then if you're in a position where you can't then go to an audition or you can't then travel for a job, and then you miss out on a fantastic career opportunity because you couldn't pay for the travel, that then just spirals into another heap of sort of sad and difficult emotions to manage, I think, which is never nice, and you never want to be in that situation. I would never want to be the person asking someone for money, but if any of my friends ever came to me and I could help them out, I would, like you said, Stephen, if you had your money saved up, I would always happily lend somebody some money. Yeah, if I had the ability to any of my friends or family, because I know that they're good for it.
Absolutely.
And I'm not the sort of person to necessarily hound and chase every week for it back. You know, I might say after a month or 2 months, oh, have you got a bit of this or whatever?
Yeah.
And I used to quite often, I had a friend who, one of my Australian friends, however, he would quite often not earn as much as some other teachers and was living in London and going out. And so what he'd quite often do is get through his money and say, oh, can I borrow 100 quid for the end of the month? I go, here you go. And then immediately he'd pay it back and then 100 quid, and it became was like this weird like buddy loan system, but without having to go through the.
You prefer them to come to
bank
you
rather
than go
much
for a credit,
especially with some of those horrific like payday loan lenders. They're awful, aren't they?
But then I guess it's sort of like it does get to a point where if say he needed a bit more, and then he'd be embarrassed to go to you, whereas a bank and a loan is a faceless person.
Yeah.
And
I get it, but if you have that thought process, Adam, you're going to get into more trouble.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because that's how they get you in terms of like you get into debt and you spiral because you can't pay the interest of that loan and stuff. And I think sometimes it's worth it just.
And I think what we probably should say.
I think like you were saying,
I would much rather someone ask me. Yeah, and I might not always be in a situation to be able to necessarily do lump sums here or there, and I'm probably. You know, I'm not going to give someone £1,000 tomorrow if they ask me for it. But if somebody said, oh, I've got 50 quid, 100 quid, whatever. Yeah, like, if you need it, you only ask me because you're in that situation. You're not asking me to go and spend it on, whatever, 10 Domino's pizzas, are you? You're asking me because you need to pay your Lecky bill or whatever. Burger. Or your 26 burger. And I also think we should probably say at this point as well, there's lots of, unlike maybe some of the other things we spoke about in our podcasts, I think there actually is lots of good financial support and websites out there for people if they're struggling. And I don't know if you guys ever use like Martin Lewis's money tips or anything like that, but I actually think he does a really, really good job at helping people out in trying to find little cuts, you know, corners to cut and little bits to save.
That's why it's become so popular.
Well,
over recently because cost of living's getting so high, and over the last 10 years,
and I have to say, I don't.
It's so hard to live.
Yeah, I used to use him. I don't know if anyone remembers when he first started up. He used to be like a coupon guy. So like when he first started, he'd be like, oh, here's a link to save 10% on your Sainsbury's shopping, or here's like 5% on your Curry's order, or whatever. That's how he sort of first started, with a few little tips. And now it's really, really hardcore into like banking advice and stuff. But if you do follow what he says, there are lots of ways to save little bits of money here and there. And I know we've sort of mentioned it already, but if you have money, it's always easier to sort of do some more of these things. You know, oh, here's a tip on how to put 10 grand in an ISA. Yeah. Well, not everyone's got 10 grand, so that's not a very good tip for half the population. But when it's, oh, open up this bank account so you can get, you know, £100 joining bonus, things like that, I always keep my eye out on banks doing that. Like, I will happily change my my current account every year just to get the £100 joining bonus or the £125 joining bonus, because a current account these days, it's just all on your phone. Like, you do it on your phone, do the change, they give you over, right, 100 quid, cheers boys. And I always keep my eye out for those kind of little deals just to try and get what little we can back out of people.
Apparently, Stephen, flatmate, was telling me that Nationwide have a good switch at the moment. I think
probably like 150 or 125, something like that.
They give you £200.
There you go.
It's also an 8%
interest rate.
Savings.
There you go. Perfect. That kind of thing now, there's no reason, unless one of us has just opened up a current account, why we couldn't all then go and do that straight away and go and get 200 quid for free. Like, why wouldn't you? And I think we should always encourage people to be more open about talking about money so that we can have that kind of conversation. Like, if people didn't say to you were struggling, you might suggest to them, oh, have you seen this, by the way?
Yeah,
because you don't exactly. You're passing advice, and we're not saying we're all accountants or know investment gurus or experts in any kind of way. But by all means, if now you've told me that, I might go home and have a little look at that.
Hey, bro, that's some nice sneakers you got there.
Thanks, dude. You want to know where I got them?
Well, of course.
I got them from a new supplier called Base and Co.
Base & Co?
That's right. They have partnered with some of the most trusted suppliers on the globe so they can get us hard-to-find activewear on the market.
Do you mean like sneakers?
Like sneakers, too. Currently on the store, they've got Nike Jordan 1s, Nike Jordan 4s.
Don't you mean Jordan 4s and Jordan 1s?
Any Rolexes? But seriously, they offer competitive prices.
Cheaper than the well-known trainer resellers that we usually use.
Really?
Really?
And I've heard that they offer next day UK delivery on all orders before 1 p.m. and free shipping on all orders over £350.
Don't you mean dollars?
We live in England, silly!
Gosh.
Every outfit needs a base. You choose the base, we provide the base.
So sweet.
Is there a stigma preventing men from seeking or discussing their mental health struggles related to money or careers?
Yes, there is. There shouldn't be, though.
How
Next question.
Well, that's that one solved.
how do you think that could be remedied?
In terms of, I guess, not wanting to come across as like you're not doing well to your friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a certain stigma thinking you don't want somebody to feel sorry for you or feeling in a... And like you were going back to in terms of you don't feel comfortable going to your friends or necessarily your family. You'd be more happy to go to a bank that's faceless in terms of if you're struggling for money. I think that is a big stigma. And then because of that, you find it more difficult to get impartial help from, say, friends because you don't want to let them know that you're in financial problems or financial difficulties. And like we were just talking about, you can get really, really good advice when you just talk about these type of things.
I don't think, as much as we talked about it now within this sort of circle, I still haven't actually talked that much about necessarily like my money, if that makes sense. I talked about like my approach and what I'd spend and how I might deal in such situations and what I value and what I don't value. But at no point am I asking, and I don't think I would necessarily say right now about necessarily my specific financial situation. And I think that probably still comes back to what we're saying now. Of all the things you spoke about, I think I've been quite open and happy to talk about my specific moments and how they feel. But I still feel like this one's quite hard to say, like, I have X amount of money.
Yeah.
Because of two things. I think the two things are either you don't want to appear like you've not got too little, and you also don't want to appear like you've got too much.
Yeah.
And it's that judgment that you feel like you might get, where if I sit here and complain that I feel like I've got no money, and then say I have, I don't know, 10 grand in the bank, and you're like, 10 grand in the bank? You're saying you're poor?
Yeah.
Like, fucking sort yourself out, mate. But then equally, if I said, you know, I feel really, really flush, and everyone's like, oh, well, and I've got a tenner, and you're like, oh, yeah, rich then. Like, again, it's that kind of feeling of not really knowing where to gauge. And because people don't all talk about it, it's really hard to get like a social barometer of what people's views are on it. Whereas I think if I said, guys, I'm feeling really depressed, I know you're not all going to be like, well, that's on you then, lad. Like, I know that the response is going to be like I don't know, because it's talk about more. I don't know. I feel like that's pretty like...
That's a very, very good point. Very good point.
I believe you said you paid more.
Yeah, well, I paid.
More.
Yeah, because I had the deposit money, I paid the deposit money, so I legally own a bit more of the flat.
So
But everything else we split evenly.
And with me, Stephen earns more than me. But it was very much when we decided we were going to buy together, it was just suddenly we had to know everything about
That's
each
what I'm
other.
saying. So
He had to know if I had any loans, I
debt,
had to know
credit
if he
cards,
had
all
any,
those things. Yeah,
and that is a real sort of.
It's a forensic analysis of
Yeah.
your financial things. Yeah,
It
so
feels
same
really
thing,
like you just opened up.
You do,
And
Yeah.
I think as well, like you were saying, with friends, it can be weird because it's sort of like you want to go out with your mates and you want to be, but if they're earning a lot more money than you, it's sort of that level of I've got to try and keep up.
Yeah,
I've got
absolutely.
to keep up appearances.
Yeah.
I've got to spend if they go up to buy a round of shots, then I can feel like I can
You got to do it as
go
well,
up and buy a round of shots.
And you don't know what feel like that they've got you something and you haven't got them
Yeah.
back as well. And lots of people, I think, probably in this group, I know I've experienced it, that we've all been out and we're not necessarily saying, I bought one, you have to get me a drink back. Like, you buy it, and then sort of our social custom, if you like, is that we know that by the end of the night, things will roughly work out. And that's the view I've had with all of my friends is, over my lifetime, all of my friends, it's going to be 50-50. It might not be that they paid the Uber this night and I paid the Uber next night, or it might be that I bought the pizzas and they got the takeaway the following week. Like,
you don't keep score.
You don't keep score. You don't.
Apart from taxis sometimes.
So I only do that. I only do that if it's like a big group of people and I paid the full amount. So if it's like a 60 minute Uber home and it's like 4 people and I might not see some of them for a while, then I'd say, okay, I'm charge 15 quid.
Yeah.
If it was like me and Martin going home together, or like me and Stevie going home, and I know we're going to go out next week. Yeah. Don't worry, we'll work it out next week, whatever. And then if after 2 or 3 months I've bought all the taxis, then I might be saying, Steve, you've not bought an Uber for a month.
How did you feel talking to Stephen about so when you had to tell him about your financial situation, when you had to speak to him about getting a mortgage and stuff, how did you feel talking about it?
Not great. I think so. When we bought, I had a Help to Buy ISA, and he had a lifetime ISA. But my Help to Buy, basically, the first one we looked at was a place in Dartford, and to be honest, it was my ignorance probably. I felt like I had enough money, and we put down an offer, and it got accepted, and we were basically going to sign a contract, and then I realised that my Help to Buy ISA wouldn't let me buy outside of London boroughs. So suddenly I was 3 or 4 grand down, and I was like, fuck, I can't afford this now. And that was really hard to have that conversation with Stephen and basically go, I'm really sorry, I've sort of made a mistake.
You fucked it a little bit.
I can't afford it. And then, like, Stephen was great, don't get me wrong, but the guy did actually, the estate agent, the person who was selling the property, the estate agent, he basically, when I said I can't afford it anymore, he basically called Stephen, because Stephen was mainly the one talking, and then basically I came in saying, I can't actually afford this, and then he called Stephen and basically was like, just had a go at me, started basically being like to Stephen, be careful who you're buying with, mate, and stuff like that.
What a douchebag!
And he was proper slagging me off to Stephen.
How snaky!
But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it worked out really well. We
got a nicer place.
Yeah, got a nicer place, and it was, and obviously it gave us then extra 3 months for me to save that little bit extra.
Quid, yeah.
So that was, in the end, worked out really well. But there was that time where we were buying. Obviously, I know Stephen really wanted to move out, but I probably wasn't in the right position.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me to say that to Stephen, because I know how much he wanted to move out, and I know that I don't know what would have happened if I'd said I need to wait 6 months. Do you know what I mean?
It just starts off so romantic, doesn't it? Looking for a house, it's so fun. Like looking, we could live here, we could do this, we could do that, and then it just ends in this sort of, you're broken. You have to deal with estate agents, bankers, and lawyers. 3 people, or teams of people I don't want to ever see again.
I'll be honest, that is a shit dinner party. You got an estate agent, a counsellor.
But I'll just say one thing. I think I mentioned this before when we were looking. Me and Tash were looking for a flat. We've been walking around all day, and I think this was like the 5th flat we saw. It was on Beckenham Grove.
Oh yeah.
Waiting for a fair old while for the estate agent to turn up. Eventually turns up. Oh yeah, thank you for coming, cheers. And he sort of took a bag out of his car, which I thought was fine, a bit weird. Like,
what kind of bag?
Like a
grocery bag, like a
carrier bag.
Oh really?
Anyway, followed him in. I said, thanks for coming. Wasn't the estate agent. Some random guy followed him into his house. He was not selling, and I just generally walked into his house and went, "Oh, this is nice. Yeah, love what you've done with the place." He was way too polite to call me on it. And
how far did you get in?
I was in his house. I took my shoes off. We'd seen pictures of the flat. Obviously, it was empty. It was unfurnished. And this was clearly furnished,
being lived in.
Family photos, a dog. So I just folled him.
You're going to be my new dog.
Yeah.
Do the kids come with the flat, or are they extra?
We're best friends now. Yeah.
That's so funny.
I know, yeah.
But what, so what? No, I still want to know. So you followed this guy in, right?
Yeah.
You went in. You took your shoes off.
Yeah.
What was the interaction with the man after?
Before he said anything, I said, "I'm really sorry. We're waiting to see a flat. I thought you were the estate agent," and I quickly left
With your shoes off.
with my shoes still there. I assume he's now got a pair of Nike Air Force Ones.
That's the cost. That goes down as a cost. And that's an expense.
Every time I walk past that flat, I'm like, oh. Oh, that's awful.
That is funny.
But it is just go back. It's the most stressful freaking time, isn't it? And what should be so fun and so a huge landmark moment in your life is ruined by stress. And stress is caused by money.
And it's also solicitors. I don't know if anyone else is, but they are the most incompetent breed of... Sorry, there's no solicitors out there, but they are debatably the most incompetent breed of people ever.
Well, I had a different experience because I had, Ash Chapel.
Yeah.
His girlfriend Jess.
Yeah. Lovely lady.
She was our solicitor.
Oh, perfect. So you had a great experience.
And I got a recommendation from Drew.
Yeah.
And cause,
lovely man.
Yeah, lovely guy. Both of them, all of them. And so, what was really good is Jess seemed really on it.
Yeah.
And we were having
no
conversation. But no one tells you about if they hire the shit solicitors.
Yeah.
Then you're still going to have to wait for the shit solicitors.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Shit solicitors.
So I had some, again, to about money and about that value of things. When we were looking, we weren't quite sure what good value for money solicitors were. So I basically did a Google search for cheapest solicitors and then ranked them on gocompare.com but for solicitors. And it was I don't know, they were much cheaper, like £500. And I thought, oh, lovely, some good reviews and stuff. Fuck, do I regret that decision? Just pay the £500 and get someone around the corner that's actually decent. Because oh my god, these people in an office somewhere in Essex were not involved in the area. Were just basically a load of paralegal people that were starting out their fresh jobs. And you just get that emails can you send this over? I have done. Oh, can you send it over again? Okay, fine. Then can you send that over? I did yesterday. What? Seriously?
I mean, I'm so glad I've done it now though, because renting for a long time. Tash and I rented for 2 years. And I realise I'm coming at this from a position of privilege that now owns a flat. But we spent about 30 grand. And then at the end of that 2 years, they went, yeah, get out.
Now with our current management company that manage our property, our lease, Gateway, wankers, we've just established a new company that is the company of the flats. And we're now managing our own building effectively, and we're going to install a new management company. But you see some of the charges they were putting. We moved in and our service charge for the year was I think £1,600. That was the previous year for the year we're moving in. We thought, oh, that's fairly reasonable, roughly in line. We've got a gate that needs to get serviced. They do a bit of cleaning, do a bit of sweeping. And then within the 2 years we lived there, it had gone up to £2,500. It had gone up to £900 in 2 years. Now, okay, inflation's 10%. Oh, that's just pretty good. 10% on 1,600, and then 10% on that is not £900, right? It was ridiculous. And then you look at some of the fees, and it was £4,000 for sweeping leaves. They pay themselves £4,000 because it was their people they would then send out who do it every 2 weeks. There are only leaves on the floor for a month of the whole year, October, right? There are no leaves on the floor in May because they're all on the trees. So what the fuck are you sweeping?
Well, they're sweeping them from the trees.
I'm just imagining you just on your window, just looking down in.
On the balcony.
Yeah.
Just doing it, just getting red and red in the face, just hands crossed, seething.
Steve, it honestly was
hours on end. Say, Martin, look what he's doing now.
Honestly, it was like that, right? And then I don't remember that there was a bit of a storm a couple of years ago, and one of the fence panels blew down. Right, a fence panel blew down. They put it back in and put a concrete post in. How much do you think they charged us to put the fence panel back up?
Okay, so fence panel.
The fence panel fell down. They put the fence panel back up again vertically, not replaced it. It wasn't a new fence panel. They just pushed it back up again and put a post in the ground. How much do they charge?
£17 plus VAT.
£1,000.
So I think I've said this story to Steve before. You were saying about how it's almost embarrassing to have too much money. It's embarrassing to have not enough money.
Yeah.
And we generally, our defence for that is just not talk about money. So I remember when I was at school, one of the biggest bollockins I had in my entire life, and I maintain this is unfair. Tell me what you think. We were all sat in the room, all the sort of year 11s, all sat in the physics room. And
physics.
I used to get, I'm using this air quotes here, joked at for being rich. But there's one area of my town which was like considered the affluent area. Probably it's not particularly.
The Beverly Hills of Wales.
Beverly Hills
Nice.
of my town. So it was always a sort of running joke. And the teacher said, right, if your parents earn above X amount a year, you do not qualify for PP.
Mm-hmm.
And to which a guy called Perry turned round to me for the whole year and went, haha, Lloyd, you don't. And a bit of laughter, to which I was a bit, so my reply was, haha, Perry, you do. And I got absolutely bollocked. Well, he did exactly the same joke to me, but in reverse.
No, that's fair.
So I still think about this. Was I wrong?
I think you were wrong.
Was it equal? I could
In
accept that.
my opinion,
Yeah.
in my valid opinion,
I was 16, I should point out.
No, I know you were 16.
I did far more dickish things than that.
But what I'm
as a
saying is, if you
16-year-old.
did that now, then yes, I would be. It's not like the fact that you were 16. Fine, like I get why you did it, and I understand it wasn't. But I would say, if you would say which one's in the wrong, I know he's the one who instigated it. I would say you'd be the one in the wrong.
Have you seen Everton have changed their sponsors around, I think, their scoreboard or the advertising board somewhere in their stadium to the local food bank?
Oh, really?
Because,
really?
so, yeah,
That's
so...
right. I don't have time for that.
So I think everyone's football oriented enough that quite a lot of sort of football chants aimed at Scousers evolves around them being a poor city. So there's talks about bin dippers and claiming benefits and being on the rob, and those are the general chants that find themselves being directed at Liverpool and Everton supporters. And so Everton went, well, do you know what? Fuck yous. We're going to sort of like take your little muggy chant and we're going to actually just advertise the local food banks. Now they get free advertising on a Premier League ground. In like I haven't seen it yet. I was reading about it in an article. In what I assume is quite a prime position for TV cameras and stuff. So well done Everton for that.
I like that a lot.
Have you guys experienced any sort of job dissatisfaction from your careers? And how has money contributed to that?
Everyone's looking at me as the nurse, I think.
No, not because you're a nurse, because you open up about your dissatisfaction of your career last episode.
So I find career a very strange word. I think from a young age in the school system, you're told you need to work hard, get a good career, get a good job, and you'll do well. I don't know how true that is. I've got what am I trying to say? So I worked hard. I went to university twice. I spent 6 years in total in university to get a good career. When I qualified as a nurse, I deliberately went to one of the more challenging areas, liver specialty, one of the biggest pediatric liver centre in Europe. I deliberately challenged myself because I wanted a good career. Now, I'm so disheartened with it, and that's largely due to having been in it 10 years. The pressures on the NHS, the sort of, you feel like it's not as rewarding as it once was because you don't feel like you can do as much as you once could. Now I just wish someone would pay the same amount of money to do anything else, work in a shop, sweep up. And I focused so much on career at an early age that I didn't think about life outside of a career. And now, because I'm so tired, because I don't make much money, it's affected my life outside. And I have a friend who works on the railway, and fantastically paid job. I don't think he went to university. Fantastically paid job, got in there, got at the bottom, worked his way up, has lots of time to be with his kids, to be with his family, and can afford a good living. And he never thought about career, he just wanted a job, to fund his life. Whereas I didn't focus on life, I focused on career, and now I feel like my life is suffering as a result. Now, in order to get that satisfaction, you have to work so hard against the system, because the system isn't designed to give out as much as it once was. It's just so little that we can do. We have so little in the ways of, money for, entertainment for the kids, books for the kids, toys for the kids, that everything is just... You have to fight against the system so hard to get someone what they should have, whether that's a medical thing. Like today, I fought so hard for an ultrasound for a kid, and I couldn't get it. I just could not get it because the pressures are huge. There's no slots, and I felt rotten as a result of that. Whereas, you know, because that you want to be able to give what you once could, but you're having to fight against the system in order to be able to give good care. And even when somebody does, and somebody did say something nice about me today, and you know about what I'd done for them, it's bittersweet because I still know that I could have done more. I know I would love to have been able to offer them family accommodation, you know, family support, other things, you know, transport costs, but I just can't.
Well, so that's not you then.
Food
so you couldn't offer more.
No,
the
no.
NHS could have offered more.
Absolutely.
That's what you're saying. So it's not you.
Yeah, but
But do you know what?
it feels like
it's coming from, you know, it's.
But you shouldn't.
But
Because
I'm
it's
supported.
not your fault.
But I'm forced to work in the system that I work in.
Yeah.
And I think we've got, like I said, lots of parallels in our jobs. Yes, I love teaching. Would I look at getting out of a career that could pay me the same amount of money now and give me more flexibility? 100% I would.
Yeah.
So you two obviously both saying that you both do jobs that are quite fulfilling in terms of how you feel like you give what you give to that job, and you're both saying that you would change your job now
if you offer me
if someone
another
gave you the
career,
exact amount of money.
Yeah,
You would change your career.
100%. Yeah.
Your job now.
Yeah.
Would you say that you do this job purely for the money?
Yeah.
As opposed to
Yeah.
you don't get that satisfaction.
I do get satisfaction from it.
Yeah.
I do get satisfaction. I don't think anywhere near the amount of satisfaction as seeing a young kid really embrace physics or something like that. Maybe somebody who wasn't doing particularly well, but somebody who thinking they come alive when they start talking about physics, or maybe somebody's not doing that well at school, or somebody's not doing that well at home, but then when they come to their physics class, they just love it and they engage, and then Rob can bring it out of them. The reason I do it is for the money, and it's not necessarily just... I do find it rewarding, but nowhere near to the same extent as you two.
In your head, what sort of career would you think you would find rewarding?
Well, I've always kind of had a view about teaching and saying, but again, I am really comfortable now. Like, I'm comfortable in my position. I'm comfortable, like, I have a career path. I make okay money, and I live a very kind of okay life. But again, if I went into teaching, I know it'd be a massive drop in terms of being an NQT.
Yeah.
Would you make that? So where Rob and Lloyd have said they would change careers if someone paid you the same, with your career, would you go into teaching taking a pay cut, or would you?
Maybe in future, not now though.
What do you think your nickname would be? What nickname do you think the kids would give you if you went into teaching?
Great cunt.
Yeah. That wouldn't be overly...
That came out a little too quick, didn't it? I really saw that question was going.
That'd be like set 4 nickname.
That'd be set
for
4,
me.
yeah.
Grey cunt. Set 1, I think they'll probably come up with something.
That's so elitist.
Set 1, I think they'll probably give me a little bit more. No, that's not elitist.
No, I love the fact that your insult will probably that's around a
set 4 will come
that's
Grey
set
cunt.
4 level.
They'd be like 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah,
a little bit more literary.
Yeah,
set 1.
Dorian. Call you Dorian.
Grey cunt.
Oh, Grey Guy's definitely staying in. Yeah, the rapturous laughter it got is enough.
It was just the speed you said it. I wasn't even asking you. I was asking him.
I think he was.
Grey cunt.
It was more. He was just ready. I think he's been holding it in the whole podcast, and then as soon as
It was
Grey cunt.
He wasn't even listening to the story. He was just like, wait a second.
I'm here for one thing. For an hour and 40 minutes, I've been thinking about those 2 words. I've got to squeeze it in somewhere. We had a teacher called Mr. Buntain, and his name obviously became Mr. Bumstain. And that was it. But we wouldn't just say it to each other. We would shout it down the corridor at him as we were walking past. Like, "Oi, Bumstain!" How horrible are kids? Like I say, that doesn't happen at my school, so I don't know if I have one or not. People aren't shouting it, just an obscenity at me down the corridor. Or we'd even say, we just say people's names, but in like a weird accent, and just run away. I don't know if anyone else did that. We'd just go, "Oi, Ian Weaver!" That is what we'd say, right? We had Mr. N. Flanders, and he had a big moustache on him, so he looked a bit like Ned from The Simpsons. So we go, "Oi, Ned!" and all that, and just run away from him.
And just go, "Oakley dokley."
That's too advanced.
Me and Toby had this maths teacher called Mr. Smith, And it's nothing to do with his name, but one of the things we used to do to him and it just wound him up so much, is we'd go up to him in the hall and we'd just like chat to him, but like mumble. We'd be like, Mr. Smith, what are you doing tonight? And then he'd be like, why are you talking like that? And then we were like, what do you mean, how are we talking like that? And he's like, stop it. And then Toby's just going, Mr. Smith, I don't know what you're talking about. And it was just this one other thing as well. Basically, at the start of class, me and Toby we were sat next to each other. And he sometimes like scooted between our desk and his desk because he was at the front of the class if he was moving
and
about.
And
we just moved our desk closer. And then we tuck our bags underneath the gap under the table. And so he's trying to like squeeze his way through this little gap. And one time he stacked on our bags and dropped. And bear in mind, he was he must have been in his 60s, I reckon.
Yeah, I remember Mr. Smith.
And then he got up and he was like brushing himself off and stuff like that. And then this kid called Chris was just like, are you all right, sir? And then he just went, oh, yeah, it's going to take more than that to keep me down.
See, that's class. That's perfect. That's exactly what you need. In that situation, that's exactly what you need. The word rare make it lagging as well.
Yeah.
So that started at Ravenswood. Again, just before a teacher's name, for no reason whatsoever. So we just ran up to go, rare Parham. What? His last name was Parham, right? And I don't know where this word came from. One of the kids in our year, I think, started up. And everyone was like, rare, like that, just say that, but like all the time in class. Like a thing for like 4 years at Ravenswood, right? And we used to go, rare, Parham, like that. And he's just so annoyed. The last day of year 11, we piled 100 kids just outside his art class and all went, rare, Parham, like that. And just sprinted away, like 100 kids.
So we've spoken about job dissatisfaction.
And satisfaction.
And satisfaction. How do you think that relates to your relationships, both with sort of partners or your family? I, for one, personally could... It was probably a couple of years ago, basically. I was with an ex-girlfriend, and it was after COVID, and I had started to feel like, where obviously I mentioned that I was doing sort of a lot of freelance jobs, just random bits and bobs. I was then got to a point where I was like, I want a mortgage. I want to start thinking about the future. And so the money thing really was holding me back, I think. The fact that I was self-employed, didn't have too much in the last few years. And I thought, if I want to get a mortgage, I need really a full-time job. So I was playing about with the idea, and then the current job that I'm in, they sort of offered at the time when I was sort of production assistant, got offered that job. And that, I think, at the time was the right step for me, because I was thinking about the future with my ex-girlfriend at the time. And it was very hard because I knew what she wanted, and then I couldn't do that with what I was currently doing, that it did obviously have an effect on me in wanting to get a full-time job.
Yeah, that's understandable. I don't think that's like an uncommon position to be in, because you're kind of then managing two pressures at the same time, aren't you? Imagine your career pressure and the relationship pressure at the same time, and they are going to have a knock-on effect on each other. Lloyd, you're probably in a bit of a better position than I am to talk about this a bit more.
About, I think for me, it becomes all-consuming. Like my job, I spend 40 hours a week doing that, so I think about it a lot, and then naturally that means I talk about it a lot, and that affects my relationship, because the person I talk to most about it is Tash. A, because she understands, because she's in a similar profession, so, and B, because that's what's on my mind, and she doesn't want to hear about me, how unhappy I am in my job, you know, how bad my day has been, and I know that she worries about me because of my job, if that sounds weird. Yeah. So I have to be careful what I say here, because it's quite fresh. But there's an example of the weekend where something tragic happened. I won't go into it any more than that. And I was very upset by it. And Tash's first question was, who called you on the weekend? Like, who called you on the weekend? Because she has now become so worried about me that although something tragic had happened and I mentioned that this tragedy had happened, her first thought was about me, because she was worried about me getting called on the weekend and getting pulled into this, because she knows how much my job affects me, and it then in turn affects my relationship, what we talk about. And it's really hard to be happy all day, because I have to be, because I'm making jokes with the kids and trying to cheer people up, that I'm sapped by the end of the day. And bless her, she is then forced to be my outlet for that. She's forced to listen to the rant, and it's vice versa. She has similar things with me.
So to summarise this week's episode, I think we can all agree that money doesn't buy happiness, but it does make the world go round.
So to quote Del Boy, which I think was quite an apt one, I think somebody said to him once, "Money ain't everything, is it?" And he said, "No, but it certainly takes the sting out of being poor."
Yeah, very, very good. And if you need any advice or support, we'll put some links below to, I think, probably money expert, what's his name? Martin Lewis Money Tips. I think we'll put that in there. And maybe even FCS Financial Services. I think it's probably not a bad one as well in there.
Can I just say one thing to summarise?
Yeah.
There is a thing at the moment where, it's happened quite a lot, I don't know if it's happened to you guys, where people will call claiming to be from the UK government and their debt advice, and they'll start asking you for information about your finances. It is a scam. The government does not outsource these positions to external companies. Do not give them any information. Or do what I do and give them false information, tell them you're a mobile dog groomer.
To summarise this weekend's football results, obviously it was pouring down with rain, and both the 3s and the 6s games got cancelled. So unfortunately we don't have any scores to give you. This is unfortunately the last of our first season. So hope you guys have enjoyed listening to us ramble on, as we tend to do. Thank you everyone for listening, and we hope you guys have a fantastic Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Not So Old Boys podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And also, don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and content. You can find us on Instagram at Not So Old Boys. And finally, if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, please send us a message. We love hearing from you.